Welcome to the Elevated Marketing podcast show that is designed for business owners and marketers who are tired of overhyped advice. We talk through what we're testing, we challenge assumptions, and we share what's really happening in the world of marketing, which is messy, creative, and always evolving. Welcome to the show. Hello, it is Jennifer Denney.
And Brenda Jackson. Hello, hello.
And this is a topic we've definitely talked about before. It's been about 100 episodes ago.
That's wild.
I was talking to someone yesterday at a networking event and telling them how long we have been doing this show and then the small biz chat. And they're like, wow, like that's a long time. And I'm like, yeah, it is.
Creeps up on you.
But if you're not talking, then nobody's going to be listening, right?
Absolutely.
But if you're always talking, I would say that this topic doesn't happen. So we're going back and we're talking about why the best marketing agencies ask better questions before they actually give answers.
Yes, it is important.
Yeah. I'm a curious person, and I can only imagine my parents as I was a child, and I was probably deafened. But why? But
Mm-hmm.
why? And it wasn't because I was questioning, authority or anything. I like to understand, and as Stephen Covey says, seek to understand before being understood. I don't like to jump to conclusions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of assuming that happens when questions aren't asked, and then that's how we sometimes end up down rabbit holes.
What's the saying when you assume you make a ass out of you and me? So, I think there's different parts when questions get asked. It's certainly during the sales process when you're deciding on a new marketing agency. It's certainly on onboarding, and it's certainly an ongoing thing that questions build upon questions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we could sit and ramble all day, and we may not get anything out of it because we're not engaging with you in those conversations.
Yeah, yeah. Like sometimes I've seen situations where people are asking questions, but they're not asking questions that, okay, well, I found that answer. So it's like they're almost staring at a screen and being like, okay, well, next question. It's like, oh, but there was more to talk about what we were just going through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes one question just isn't enough.
That's true. And I could see from the perspective of somebody, you know, talking to maybe a new marketing agency being frustrated because they felt like they gave the last marketing agency, like, I gave all this information. I have to go through this again. Like, and you feel like you're repeating yourself. And I can understand that frustration.
Yeah, yeah. I could see that.
Yeah, it's definitely a pain point for them. Like they feel like they're starting from scratch. So,
Mhm.
um, you know, when it comes to the sales process and asking questions, a lot of times, business owners and leaders come in with very specific needs that they want SEO, or they need email marketing, or they need social media. And I think there's a lot of self-diagnosing going on. And I think that happens in a lot of different industries where you kind of decide what you already need. And so your defenses are up and you're like, this is what I need. But I challenge that when you get into that relationship, that somebody that comes to the table and starts asking more probing questions is the right type of vendor, because they are the expert. They have been there, and they can ask the type of questions that will help discover if those are what you need
Mhm.
and not just sell you a package.
Yeah, and the lack of that discovery stage can really be where you get into trouble there, and you're not gonna see the results that you're expecting to see.
Yeah. I think the word challenge in itself sounds combative, but
Mhm.
I think when you don't ask those tough questions, you get surface level results and surface level answers.
Yeah.
And while it might be easier, it's likely going to lead to a really bad marketing strategy.
Yeah, yeah, it's really hard to achieve long-term goals when you aren't asking those deeper questions, and some of them might seem a little surface level at first, but as you really get into it, you're gonna find that there's a lot more that kind of branches off from that.
Yeah, there's a process to marketing, and there are foundational questions that when you ask those foundational questions, you discover whether or not somebody has already identified who their audience is first. You know,
Mhm,
you identify if they have content. Um, I personally feel like a lot of people don't understand the value of content marketing and what that actually means,
mhm,
and that these what we go through, like a business profile, helps us uncover if those things have actually even taken place, and if they haven't, we're way ahead of ourselves in that example of, well, I need SEO, and it's like, okay, like, do you?
mhm.
Because we don't even know who we're talking to yet.
Yeah, and I think not only that too, but kind of getting more of the background of a client is really helpful too.
Yeah,
Because while you may have tried something in the past and it didn't work well, doesn't mean that the right questions and the right strategies couldn't work with that same
that's
tactic.
right. Yeah, that
Yeah.
same playbook. Maybe the execution was poor.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have good data set up.
Mm.
Like, until somebody is able, I mean, we say this all the time, until we're able to get in and kind of take a look at that data and understand that, oh, well, they weren't able to recognize that this is where the problem is at and come up with strategies that. So you could, by the asking of all these questions, discover that maybe you could take execution quicker,
Mhm.
because you're like, oh, okay, well, that's a pretty low hanging fruit.
Yeah. I
But
also
yeah, go ahead.
I also think about too, like, aside from actually speaking to a business's audience and all of those questions that go along with it, there's also that working relationship, right, with the client. And so asking these questions also helps an agency kind of meet that client where they are in terms of what they know, what they don't know. And it really can help progress that working relationship with teaching and other examples, whatever that may be, like as you move forward.
Look, it's a partnership,
Mhm.
and there are a lot of things on the internet, contrary to belief, that are not right. There are a lot of outspoken voices, and I don't care what industry you're in. Just because you're the loudest in the room doesn't mean that you are right.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the seeking to understand. I forget who or where I read this at, but usually the person, sometimes who's the quietest in the room, they're thinking,
Mhm.
and they're, formulating questions to probe and to go further. That's who you want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely agree.
yeah. I was on a sales call earlier, or no, it was last week, and I had questions, And in this sales presentation, they just kept talking. And like, I would even try to interject and like to try to like ask a question. And it was almost they were talking louder in order to make sure that, well, my perceive was to make sure I couldn't get my question in because I was asking questions that would make them think and question. And my goal is not to make somebody uncomfortable per se, but sometimes when you start asking questions, it does produce an uncomfortableness where it's like, oh, I didn't think about it that way, and that's a
Yeah.
good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's okay to not always have an answer right off the top of your head, and that's really where some of the best questions kind of lead to. It's definitely good questions require thinking, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, they do. And sometimes this happens in sales portion of, working with marketing agency. Sometimes it happens in onboarding and more questions come out. We do believe in that beginning, at least month is a strategy where you might be coming to the table again with that same example that I need SEO, and we're kind of figuring out like, well, do you? And that formulates the building blocks for where we start.
Yeah, definitely, and I mean, I know we can ask and ask and ask and keep going.
But there is a point of overanalyzing.
Yep, there definitely is.
We've definitely seen that where, you continue to ask more questions that lead you down other places. And look, I'm the best one as a business owner myself to go down rabbit holes. Rabbit holes that are not necessary because you're in the middle of executing this plan, this strategy, and you need time and resources for that. And all of a sudden you're like, squirrel.
Yeah, or sometimes the wrong questions will hold things up and it delays execution, which then delays results.
That is an excellent point. If there's an order to things, and you always want to have a continual conversation of adding things, but sometimes what is best is to be like, you know what, that's a really good point. Let's put that over here into a strategy bucket that once we get through executing what we are doing right now, that's a good next step because you can't put creativity on a time clock. We've said that before. So you don't want to lose that information, but it's not the right timing
Hmm. Yeah.
to that
Or
index.
sometimes some questions need to be answered by data. There has to be a story involved in answering that question, and putting things to the test sometimes is the way to go about that.
That's actually also a very good valid
I
point.
mean, what can I say? No.
We say let data tell the story, and I feel like we talk about that a lot, and you just can't over assume that you know the answer without the data. And then you can't over assume because you've been in an industry because the market is constantly changing.
Yeah.
And so there's like new questions to ask based on the market changing. And I might, we've done service industries. I've done service based marketing for over 25 years. And that's good. And that gives me a real solid foundation. But you know, new things come out like the usage of ChatGPT and usage of it, and it poses new questions and new ways to look at it to where outdated things might not be where you want to start because while yeah it could help, but is it what you need right now?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like you're saying, having those years of experience is, of course, always going to be great to have. I think a lot of times it's kind of like trends. Some things always come back around. And so it's just more that you're putting inside of your toolbox. And asking these questions is only going to grow that toolbox.
Yeah. Yeah. I again know why some people avoid tough questions.
Yeah.
I came from a place where we sold cookie cutter marketing packages, and at the time I didn't know what we were selling was cookie cutter. I honestly thought it was what was needed, and it was those tough questions. It was the Jerry Maguire moment of me questioning the CEO on what we were doing, and I wasn't trying to like question like, hey, you suck. It was more of like a, but what about this and that? But I wasn't getting answers because it didn't fit the packages we were selling. Doesn't mean they weren't good questions.
Right.
Just didn't have something I could sell
Yeah.
somebody marketing.
Or or sometimes those tough questions just creates more work for people who don't want to do it.
Very good point. Or sometimes it brings up work that maybe we don't do
Mhm.
marketing agency or whoever you're speaking with doesn't do. And that's okay. But if they help enough people get what they want, they will point them in the right direction and they'll come back to you for doing that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it, it causes red flags when there is no discovery. They're just instantly into results. They're you can kind of hear somebody in a sales call just repeating exactly what you say, and
Mhm.
there isn't like questions that come out, and you kind of feel like you're ordering off a McDonald's menu, which is not how marketing works.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think too, like there are some surface level questions and then really good questions.
Yeah,
And it's not to say that the service level isn't always necessary. I think in the beginning it is a little bit surface level until you can find information to ask those deeper questions.
it's how you word it. Like you could say, "Do you want Google ads or Facebook ads?" Well, that's ordering off a McDonald's menu.
Yeah.
When you say, "Tell me about Google ads and Facebook ads. Have you done those before? Can you tell me a little bit about why you felt it did or did not work?"
Mhm.
When I pose it that way, I start to uncover why they feel it didn't work. And if they come back to me with some data metrics and things like that, then I can start to understand that they do understand that it is the data, and they do know what to look for. And so for me, that's kind of can be a positive. But if they don't, it's not necessarily a negative, but it lets me know that the last agency didn't do a great job of explaining why those individual metrics matter. Uh,
Mhm.
because as a business owner, you just want results. I get it.
Mhm.
But there is a process, and that there is a process. It's just we don't always want to admit that there's a process.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Everything
think
is brain power.
that.
Process requires brain power.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the favorite answer that, a strategic person will give that the person receiving it hates is it depends.
Mhm.
And it does depend. And there's usually a matrix of, well, if this, and this is true, then this is true. Um, and so while you might have a opposing question, there's going to be a lot of other questions that will get you down. Like, for instance, what budget do you have?
Yeah.
If a salesperson asks that question, they're trying to determine whether or not you have enough money to afford this program.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if they come at you and they say, okay, well, what is a customer worth? How many can you fulfill? What's your expected payback window? Those questions will lead you down to what kind of activities need to be done in order to ensure that this makes sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people, they don't have a budget in mind. They don't know how much something costs.
Yeah. Well, and that's also kind of on us as marketers to give those recommendations. Doesn't mean they have to match it, but if we're giving recommendations based on our findings to not only the questions we've asked, but the research we've done, then
Yeah,
it kind of guides that a little bit stronger, I would say.
yeah. And I think, while the marketing agency should be asking a lot of questions, there's a lot of questions that the business leader should be asking as well, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
They need to ask, how do you balance strategy with so you just kind of got to inverse what we're talking about. How do you balance strategy with the need for quick wins? What does your discovery process look like? How do you document and share insights? Like, that tells you how everybody on the team is going to be on the same page, and you don't have to repeat yourself.
Yeah.
How do I know what questions to tie back to business owner? Or how do you know how to tie back? What happens if our goals change mid-campaign? What are signs we might not be a good fit? I love that question
I do too.
because not everybody is going to be a good fit. So for us, like, we try to be real clear on why to choose us, and we try to be
Mhm.
real clear about who we are
Yeah.
because it might not be your jam.
Yeah. Well, asking these questions on both ends helps to set those clear expectations on here's how we operate, here's what our roles are, so
Mhm.
on and so forth. And I think that goes both ways.
Yeah. I think if you understand how the agency works and you understand if does that work for you, like, that's a really good fit. But if you're looking to kind of be that order taker, you really want an employee,
Mhm.
not a marketing agency.
Yeah.
If you're hiring a marketing agency for their expertise, in that situation, you feel like you've already established what the expertise is and you want the employee. Uh,
Yeah.
and depending on the size of your company, sometimes that's a good step where you go ahead and employ somebody on your marketing team, and then you will max out what they're able to do. And then perhaps you bring a marketing agency to add to and be part of that and continue to ask the questions that they're not thinking of because they have their own perspective, their own viewpoints, and they got to think outside their own box as well.
Yeah. I agree.
We've talked a lot about like sales and onboarding. Cool. Important questions is an evolution,
Mhm.
and it should be ongoing every month, every 6 months, every quarter, however often you're meeting with a marketing agency. There should be continual questions, and sometimes that doesn't happen because, as you pointed out, it brings on more work.
Mhm.
That's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. It
That's
is.
a good thing.
Well, and I think it's, on us and clients, like it's on us to be accepting of those questions, but to also challenge ourselves in asking those questions too, especially long after the onboarding process is finished.
Yeah. I think we could talk about this for a long time, but something I came up with is just, the best agencies aren't defined by quick answers, but by better questions.
Mhm. Yes.
So, the beginning of the story is play 20 questions with your marketing agency.
Yeah. And if anyone could count out how many times we said questions in this episode, Love to know.
We'll take a shot of coffee for that one. All right. Take care, everyone.